Imagine I'm just saying your name perfectly, right? I just want to make sure. I don't want to.
Yep,
I don't want to.
you got it.
Nice. Hi guys.
Hi.
How are you?
Don't worry, I'm clapping for you.
Well, thank you.
Do I get a reciprocal clap back? Or
I'm gonna come on.
So you guys doing the big tour, the junket, like promoting the big show, launching again tomorrow?
We are. Big start tomorrow night.
Definitely.
What time that start today? What time do you guys start doing media today?
Just in the afternoon.
Yeah, a little bit this morning, but most of it in the afternoon.
Okay, so you
it's
guys
not too bad.
Not too bad.
Properly
Not too bad.
caffeinated, we're good.
You have more after this show, or is this like
A lot more tomorrow because tomorrow's the official day.
Yes.
Yes.
We got the big day.
We got the
big
big
night
party,
happening.
the big night happening.
That's so, Manji. Now you're going in your third year. Fourth year.
Season.
I met you 4 years ago.
You did.
Because I remember that was like you were. It was your Virgin Dragon's Den thing. It was. I mean,
I haven't been called that in a while, but yes, I agree.
So I guess I'm the virgin now.
Yes, you are.
Oh,
we're gonna pop Lane's Dragon's Cherry.
There we go.
I'm sorry, dude.
I love it. Can we just do that off air, please?
Well,
I'm not sure I want
but
that.
Then I'd compromise myself, and you'd lose respect to me as an entrepreneur, not to be true to what my business is. Is that not? Is that? I could pitch you guys all day long. What I do.
I'm gonna sit out of this one.
I'm in. Just tell me how much.
Okay. We need we're doing good days actually. Well, this is so. Let's start Manji with you because for 4 years. Congrats on keep getting renewed and going back, and it really is. And listen, I'm not like the biggest TV watcher. I love Dragon's Den. I really do. And part of the reason why I love Dragon's Den, and I wonder how many people have given credit to you, and we'll get to Lane too, but legitimately I was a complete rookie when it came to being a business person. Right. A complete rookie. And I was always an entertainer and got paid by being an entertainer and just 2-week paycheck. And the last 4 or 5 years of my life, I've become a pure on business person, really. Right. But like in a weird way, you learn a lot of that stuff if you've never had business school through Dragon's Den.
And you're right. You're exactly right. And that's why the show has been on. This is its 13th season because it's unprecedented for a show to be on that long. Even Friends, like one of the biggest hits, only lasted less than 10 years. So it has been on so long because not only is it entertaining, it's educational. And educational for families. It's real great family entertainment, but also young people, older people, everybody, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you have a career, whether you're a student, you actually learn about what happens often behind the scenes and at the boardroom table, and what questions business people and entrepreneur are looking to get answered, and how we make decisions. And I think that it's a real great insight into that world.
And on top of it, I would say inspirational, where you see success stories. So you see, some regular Joes, some regular Jills coming in there, promoting, talking about what they do, seeing the passion they have in it, and then the follow-ups and seeing the success in some of these stories. Like, that's really awesome.
Agreed. And all 6 of us, too, we're all self-made entrepreneurs. So, hopefully we're inspiring, too, to them.
Of course. Yeah. And which brings us to Lane Merrifield. Dude, I know your bio. I saw the big Dragon's Den pitch. Like, you're just an awesome guy, man. Congrats on everything. I know your history, and I know Dragon's Den will explore that. Maybe you should give a brief history of why you're now sitting in one of the Dragon seats.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's been a roller coaster. I mean, I've always been an entrepreneur. I've always had different little businesses and things like that. And one of the companies we ended up starting, we started as a side business, kind of, we were just starting to have kids and had young kids, and we started this thing called Club Penguin. And we were hoping that it would, be self-sustaining. We didn't bring in any investors. There was no VC funding. We funded it all ourselves. We bootstrapped it with credit cards. I took out a line of credit on my house, which meant if it failed miserably, I was going to lose my house. We risked everything, not even really knowing the way the game was supposed to be played. And thank God, it ended up paying off. And we grew from 4 employees to 180 employees within 18 months. And then we were acquired by Disney, and then I went and spent 5 years at Disney. And now I'm starting a new startup called Fresh Grade, which is in the education space. I continue to consult for a bunch of other companies. But yeah, it's, for me, it's having all that happen before I was even 30 years old was a pretty... I mean, I really had to come to grips with the fact that, okay, Lane, you might have peaked at 28. Like this, it might be all downhill from here.
Let's be honest.
It's all downhill from here. But thankfully, Dragon's Den rescued me. You are indoctrinating me to my virgin year, and I feel like maybe it's a new day.
I'll tell you though.
He's too humble. He's too humble.
He is humble. I mean, downhill from here. If you could retire in that home you've built out west, I mean, I think you're doing good. I'm a design freak. We're building a cottage right now, actually. Oh wow! Right as we speak, we just started framing today. And very modern, and yeah, it's sort of like it's this crazy kind of experience. But I'm doing it also not only to enjoy and live there, but also to be profitable, to to make it as an asset of mine. That perhaps if you had to flip, you make some good cash.
Very smart.
My boy Ryan might be listening right now. He's building us. So what's up to Ryan? But
very smart.
Were you? Because I love were you instrumental? It's a very modern structure. It's gorgeous. I'm sure people will see it when they watch Dragon's Den tomorrow when they introduce you. Were you instrumental in helping get all that off the ground?
Yeah. I mean, it was in fact it was about a 5-year build because of how involved I wanted to be. And for me, space making is important. We built an innovation center. I was always really involved in the offices that we were building out because I think space can really impact work. It can impact your life. It can in subtle ways. How easy is it? How far do you have to walk? How many steps is it? How often do you have that frustration, that thing, that element that takes a little extra longer than it should every day? And I wanted to make sure that there was none of that. So it really is. I mean, it's a little over the top for sure.
Was that in Kelowna? I forget now. Was it?
It's in Kelowna.
It's in Kelowna.
It's in Kelowna. It's a beautiful space we've got right along the water there, and it's
awesome. Well, if you're going to lend it out to new friends,
hey, actually, I have a guest house that is hardly ever used, so you're welcome to come hang out anytime.
I'm coming.
Next time you're in Kelowna, let me know for real. I mean that too. I'm not just saying that. I mean that. It's empty. It's empty right now. You can come hang out anytime.
You knew how much of a mooch I was. You would never.
But yes, it's West Coast contemporary, which I'm sure you're familiar with. A lot of natural stone and glass and the whole bit.
Yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous and stunning. And so, what do we have to look forward to in Dragon's Den this year? I mean, this is so exciting for you two.
A whole set of new entrepreneurs and new ideas. Some great, some not so great.
Yeah, one of the things, some of the feedback, obviously it's my first year, so I can't really speak to previous years other than watching. I was such a huge fan. So to come in and actually be on set, I still remember, I kid you not, I was there by myself, the lights were off, a few lights were kind of on, and I felt like such a nerd. I actually wanted to walk the footsteps of the entrepreneur. Before I went and sat in my chair, I actually went up the stairs and I walked all the way down the stairs and I stood on the X that they all have to stand on when they pitch. And I just looked.
Remember, we heard that and we were like, no, you're not supposed to be sitting on the chair.
No, just to get in their feeling.
I wanted to know what it was like for them. I mean, I've been in pitches, I've had to pitch, I've had the company on the line, I know what that feels like. But to sit there and even just imagine all of us sitting in the chairs, it was intimidating. I mean, it was. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear. I won't swear. But
no, you can. Please do. You are allowed to.
Okay, I'll give the mild swear. It was intimidating as hell sitting up there just looking at these empty chairs. But I wanted to feel what they were going to feel like when they stepped in. I wanted to have a bit of empathy around what that experience was going to be like for them. And then I went and sat in the chair and I was like, oh.
And that went out, the empathy went out the door.
This is going to be pretty cool. This is going to be pretty cool.
Well, I can tell you, as someone who actually pitched on that show, it never made it to air,
okay.
so I wasn't even good enough to get on air. I can tell you that, and I definitely was, I'm still am to some extent very anxious in public speaking in front of people. The microphone's sort of like my wall and my way of getting around it all. But it was. I won't be so nice about it. It was intimidating. It was like the scariest. I don't actually want to swear. It was. So,
you know exactly what I was going to say.
It was so daunting. It really was. And what was cool about it, and while it didn't materialize, is Jim Tree Living actually gave me a deal at the time. Mm-hmm. So Jim, and what I pitched was, it was sort of ahead of its curve. I think because it was 5-6 years ago before I even had the program. Like 6.5 years ago. Was about the presence of Boston pizza not being great on social media, and I really wanted to take control of that and help them out and help them grow that and create hashtag campaigns and sort of be the face, knowing what my strengths are, of Boston pizza, creating a commercial campaign. And now we see that's so prevalent, and it's even prevalent in Dragon's Den. You look at some of the,
you're just ahead of your time, man.
Yeah, you were.
I've always been a bit of a visionary without any business success behind me whatsoever. But no, you guys are so great on social, online, on CBC, on the app. That must be great for both of you, Manjeet and Lane, knowing that you get exposure everywhere these days.
Oh, it's everywhere, and it's great. It's great to be recognized for not only our business accomplishments, but what we're giving back to Canadians. In the end of the day, I think if you asked everybody, that's why we would say that we said yes, and we continue to say yes year after year to sit on the show and to invest in Canadians, because for many of us, Canadians themselves are the ones who gave us our platform and helped us succeed in Canada and internationally. So it's really nice to be able to give back and educate Canadians.
It's fun because no one has any idea who I am still, so which is great. Because it's funny you mentioned the microphone and kind of that barrier. I always say I'm an introvert by nature and an extrovert by training. I grew up in a very extroverted family, so I learned how to play the game. but I need to like go recharge and quiet. You
Sure.
know, that's my gig. But it's funny because I'm still quite anonymous, which is fun for now. But every once in a while I'll meet, what's funny, I used to say kids who were into Club Penguin, it used to be their parents. Now we're 10 years later. Now I'm meeting 20-somethings who are like interviewing for jobs, who are like, oh my goodness, I was such a big fan of Club Penguin, I used to play, whatever else. And that's weird for me. Like that is, because we did it in such a vacuum, and we just were in our office in Kelowna, British Columbia, Canada. Again, not a big city, not a big metropolis, it wasn't this. And we just were hustling it out every day trying to make something fun and entertaining. And to see the reach that digital can have, right? It's the same thing with social media. The ability to impact and connect with as many people as possible in a way that has never been available in any time in history. It's a pretty exciting experience, and frankly something I enjoy taking advantage of, just because it's so cool to meet with and connect with people one-to-one.
He says that now, but unlike me, I've gotten pitched literally 10 times today. Getting coffee, I got mobbed by about 15, 20-year-olds who wanted selfies, and it's
awesome.
Fun, but you definitely do sometimes.
You like your downtime. It's past Dragons. I've become friends with Brett Wilson and with Robert Herjavec, believe it or not. Out in LA, I get to, he's been good to us out that way. And yeah, that never goes away, Lane.
It never goes away.
I get one more day. Because we go on tomorrow night, so I get one more day. No one knows.
I get pitched from washrooms to my kids' schools to elevators to, it's unreal. And I don't blame people for, they get their moment and they take it. And I think that's great. But for us, well, I don't walk around with checks.
But and that's part of it gets easy for me to say. I haven't gotten there yet, but I do love, people were like, man, you guys were filming for like 10, 11 hours a day, 3.5 weeks straight, like, were you exhausted? And of course it's tiring. There's no way you can go through that kind of a schedule and not be tired. But you have to love entrepreneurs, and you have to love these interactions. And it was always like at the end of a day when all of a sudden it's like we're done with our breaks, we've got 3 more pitches, we're all exhausted and hungry and like ready to be done for the day, that like some spark of magic, and someone steps in who has been rehearsing for months, who just like steps on that X, they start their pitch, and they've just have this joy, they have this enthusiasm, they have this idea that just brings that moment to life, and all of a sudden all of us are like, all right, let's talk, let's do this, let's figure this out. You kind of see that spark get reignited with all of us in that moment.
Well, and the other part about that I really like is listen, I love capitalism. Okay,
right.
So and I think that's obviously, if you're a dragon, you must as well. But there is and while at times, and I've seen you, Benji, feel a little harsh. Like it's okay, but that's the directness in business that I think
it's the toughness that is honestly what we all deal with, and I don't think that everybody likes to examine those parts all the time, and it doesn't have to be all the time. But it is definitely...
It's a part of business. Yeah. And it really, again, back to that business lesson, it shows people, there is little emotion when it comes to the fact-finding of the business. Of course, there's great emotion. It must feel like such a privilege. You must feel so grateful to then help out, to then grow. And that's when the passion gets involved. And you get a mixture of it both. And, what I've seen, and maybe this is me being 45, not an old guy, and like I said, just taking a stab in business and watching other people do it later in life, is... There feels to be now. Correct me if I'm wrong, Minji. Maybe you would know this a little more than me, being on the show for now. 4 years. Are there more? How do I put this? In the day, it feels like there used to be like the typical business person, and you just got who they were and understood that they knew what they knew. But now I feel like that there's so much of the creative world's into business. So much of what you started, Lane. It was like a passion project.
It's
and you
creative,
and there's so many startups where people can then grow into multi-million-dollar companies. Yeah. Am I correct to assume, as opposed to being conjectural, that like there is more of that, where it's not just like trust fund babies and business folks, like we're all we can all have an opportunity at this?
We all can, and I think that's the great thing about capitalism, like you say, and about technology, and about so many different other businesses, and different ways to get funded also, that you don't have to be a trust fund baby to start a company anymore. And you just got to be able to work hard, have some grit, have a good idea or a product, and be willing to work hard for it. And so, yeah, I agree with you. I think that it's so important in this day and age that the landscape has changed of who and what an entrepreneur can be. In my own 19 years of being an entrepreneur, it has definitely changed.
Is that part to do with being an ethnic woman? Is that part of it? Is that changed a lot?
And so part of the reason I think why I am definitely very tough, because I got a lesson very early on, is that life isn't fair. It's not fair in the world of business all the time. I can and have definitely walked into the room as a young ethnic woman with a better product than many other men sitting at the table pitching products, and I didn't get the deal. I didn't even get to talk in a lot of times in the beginning, and so I definitely developed a very thick skin in order to put up with the disappointments and the failures in business. And so I think that unfortunately the media covers a lot of the great stories that are like straight projectiles and don't talk about the bumps that most entrepreneurs have on their way to success. And I think that those tough questions are always asked, and it does happen. And I think it's important for us to tell the whole story as to what happens.
Well, you give me goosebumps talking about it. I mean, like the perseverance and the persistence and the fight. And then, I think, and Lane, you were about to jump in earlier, and I have a feeling it had to do with work ethic.
I think work ethic is obviously a huge key element. I also think there's something incredible and that we can't underestimate, especially anyone who's traveled, anyone who's seen the rest of the world. We can't underestimate the value of what it means to be doing this in Canada. And not to be overly, overly nationalistic and all, but I'm a proud Canadian, but I think it's so easy to take that for granted. And the reality is, with technology and distribution, there's an equalizer that really allows for the best idea to win. And it's not necessarily just an idea on its own. It has to be the right execution, the best grit, the best perseverance, the best work ethic. But this idea that you have to know someone, you have to be the trust fund baby, you have to. You don't have to have some sort of other angle or nepotism in order to be successful anymore. Now anyone who's willing to hustle, who's willing to take risks, and who's willing to just get it done has the opportunity to be successful. And